Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to begin by giving a praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem, Rekha Chodash. Double honors to the elders and to the apostle of the millstone, and in our respected brothers after pushing and spreading the gospel of Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, to the focus of the world. And now, through the spirit power of Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, I just wanted to do a quick lesson on this article, a very quick one. What I'm going to do is just read through the article, and Lord willing, this be edifying. Now, already, we know the prophecies. We know of the prophecies involving Iran, Israel, America, all right, Russia, and the rest of the world, right, Europe, and so on and so forth. And so, what I'm just going to do is allow this article to speak. And I believe, we can make enough connections in our head to scriptures to where we can all be edified. Now it says Trump's top general warns of Iran strike, right? Risk. It says Joint Chief Chairman General Dan Kane has been advising President Trump and top officials that a military campaign against Iran could carry significant risk, in particular the possibility of becoming entangled in a prolonged conflict, according to two sources with knowledge of those internal discussions. And you see how we always say that this devil still has a lot of pride, right? Because they don't see what what they're trying to do as the ultimate downfall of their kingdom, right? They don't think that if they go in there and they fight against Iran and Russia and the rest of the world, that their kingdom will fall. That's what we're going to read. They just think it's going to be a setback, a prolonged war. It's going to cost them money. And then they're just going to come right back and do whatever the hell it is they do as America and keep on existing, right? That's them being coming up against the will of the Lord, right? They do the will of the Lord unwillingly, I might add, and then they believe, right? But then they turn around and believe that they have everything figured out, all right? So it says why it matters. There's an ongoing debate at the top levels of Trump administration about how to handle the Iran standoff and what the consequences of each option would be. At the moment, several of the voices in Trump circles are urging caution, though some sources think Trump himself is leaning towards a strike. Above all, there is a question of what success would look like when it comes to military action and how risky it will be to try to achieve it. On the other side, reaching a nuclear deal would likely mean walking back some of the president's previous red lines. As Trump debates whether and how to attack Iran, his envoys, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, have been urging the president to hold off and give diplomacy a chance. This account of where members of Trump's top team stands is based on conversation with 5 sources who have sat in or been briefed on the high-level meetings. Kane's position could be particularly influential because he is Trump's top military advisor, and he is highly respected by the president. No one is advocating for an invasion or boots-on-the-ground military action, the sources said, but that's what they're going to end up doing, all right? It says, just as with the planning for operation to capture Nicolas Maduro, Trump has empowered a small brain trust to think through problems in Iran and present him with a range of options he can exercise at a time of his choosing that maximizes leverage and minimizes risk, right? A U.S. official said. While Kane was all, see, like I said, they think that they're just gonna, let's just come up with a plan, something we can get in and do that shit under the cover of darkness, and by the morning, you know, our kingdom will be safe. That's what they think to themselves. They think their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever. So even when they come up here, even when these own officials come up here, they say, well, there are risks. The risk isn't that their kingdom is going to fall because they don't think the Lord is powerful, right? If they think the Lord is powerful, they don't think the Lord is they don't think that the level that they've reached, the Lord's power can throw them down. While Kane was all in on the Venezuela operation, he has been more cautious in the discussion around Iran, two sources said. Cited that contrast, one source described Kane as reluctant warrior on Iran. Kane sees the stake of a major operation in Iran as higher, with a greater risk of entanglement and American casualties, the two sources said. One source said Kane was not advocating for a strike but will support and execute on any decision Trump makes. Another source with direct knowledge of Kane's thinking said the chairman is not skeptical about the military campaign but clear-eyed and realistic about the change for success and about what could happen next after war starts. No, there is no next after World War III starts. If they start a war and it escalates into including the Gog and Magog, right? Meshach and Tubal, Turkey, and it involves all these nations that end up, allying themselves with Russia. That war, they are not gonna walk out of it. That is the war that they are starting, but they don't want to believe that's what's going on. Scripture says that he keepeth not at home, and his nature will be his downfall. You know? A senior official also denied Kane had expressed skepticism. What they're saying, it says, in his role as military advisor to President, Secretary of War, and National Security Council, the chairman provides a range of military options as well as secondary considerations and associated impacts and risk to the civilian leaders who make American security decisions. The chairman provides these options confidentially. Joint Staff spokesman Joe Holstein told Axios, General Kane is a talented and highly valued member of President Trump's national security team. The president listens to a host of opinion on any given issue and decides based on what is best for the U.S. national security. Let's see. Vice President Vance also raised concerns about entanglement during internal deliberations in recent days. One source confirmed the vice president had been raising questions about the risk and complexity of the operation with military and national security officials, but denied he was outright opposed to striking Iran. And I think I already made videos on this. In the back of their mind, they know that what they're doing is crazy. But their pride is so far, is so high, right? That they can't even see themselves as shackles to prophecy, right? As shackled to prophecy. So they think, they can tiptoe around prophecy. They can go as far or they can even cross a certain threshold, and then they're still gonna have their kingdom. They don't think they're risking their kingdom at all. In fact, they think they're securing their kingdom. That's why when they come out here and they start shooting off their mouth, it's not that they're afraid of what the Lord, of what the Lord has said about their destiny, but it's that, you know, it's about nothing. They always want to, make themselves seem as though they're so fucking smart, and you know, but at the end of the day, the scripture says that he that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. It says both have advised Trump that time is on his side and that his hand will get stronger with every day that passes. Their message is that Trump should see what he can get from the Iranians and pull the trigger if and when he decides diplomacy has lost momentum. A source with knowledge said Trump has been leaning towards launching a strike for several days but agreed to give Witkoff and Kushner a bit more time for negotiations. Another source said Trump insisted on more negotiations by Witkoff and Kushner because he wants to make sure all avenues are exhausted. Lindsey Graham is one of the main advocates in favor of military actions in Trump's extended circle. He lamented in an interview with Axios on Saturday that many of Trump's advisors were counseling him not to bomb Iran. Graham urged the president to ignore them and move forward with a strike, including a phone call the two had on Sunday. Graham and other strike advocates around Trump, mostly outside of the administration, are concerned that as time passes, momentum will be lost and Trump will have to settle for a bad deal. Another person advocating for strikes is the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He has been growing more concerned since meeting Trump 10 days ago that the U.S. will stand down. A U.S. source who met Netanyahu last week said the Prime Minister left the meeting with Trump feeling he had been unable to pull him towards his position. Is he still with us? Netanyahu asked, according to the source. Okay, so they don't know. Okay, they don't know that what they're doing would lead to the end. Well, they may know, but they don't think it'll lead to the end. Let me put it that way. And so there's this pride that's just gonna what blind them and motivate them, to just ultimately, go to the valley of Jehoshaphat, and then the Lord pours his indignation upon them. All right, so that's the talks right now. That's what's going on. That's why whenever you hear of news on Iran, it's always, oh, we're thinking about it. Oh, it's a possibility. Oh, we're gonna negotiate and this, that, and the third. They're trying to figure out what's going on, right? I mean, they haven't made a decision, but the prophets have been we've been clear as to what happens when they attack Iran, but they're still doing it anyway because that's the Edomite pride. Their pride has deceived them. Their pride is they because of their pride they flatter themselves into thinking they can solve any problem, they can go through any adversity. I can't wait for the Lord to humble these to humble these men, because that's all they are. They're just men. They're just like any other man. Matter of fact, Scripture says that they're the basis of men. They're the basis of men. But they really don't be thinking that they're just men. They really be thinking that they're some, some celestial being, filled with, power and knowledge. They really think that they're God, that they are the Most High. They may even think that they're better than the Most High. I wouldn't put it past them. So that's why the day the Lord humbles them, right? In the kingdom, when the Lord finally begins to humble them, that's going to be like the book of Isaiah, the 14th chapter. Salakia. Okay. Right. Thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how hath the oppressor ceased? Isaiah 14:4. How has the oppressor ceased, and the golden city ceased? The Lord Yahweh hath broken the staff of the wicked, and the scepter of the rulers. All right. All they that shall speak, all they shall speak and say unto thee, Esau, art thou also become weak as we? This is going to be in the kingdom, when all the nations are seeing you, right, living in pits. Art thou become like unto us? Are you also a third world country? Are you also a minority? Hey, it's gonna be fun in the kingdom. All right. So I'm gonna end it right there. Shalom, Yahaba, Shmir Shad, Brakatham. To all you Akims and Akwafs that are listening in truth and sincerity, may the blessing of that should be upon our house. And until next time, Shalom.